this is the 24th of March. It's Saturday, March 24th. And I'm going to turn down Saturday, March 24th. I'll try to say this a couple different times. Saturday, March 24th. That's, again, people are reposting. Thank you already on the Super Chat. Eunice Pierce, much appreciated. Amy Montgomery, much appreciated. I'll try to acknowledge as many of these as I can as we go along. Thank you. People are saying they've read my book. My book, Killing the Deep State, is doing extremely well. Thank you for all your support, and I look forward to getting much more done on the book over the next week. We are going to contend with the New York Times to see if we get on the bestseller list. It's already been number one in a number of categories in Amazon, and it's being advertised now on Fox News. You can start to see advertisements for Killing the Deep State on Fox News. So it's coming around the country, coming around the world. Thank you, and congratulations on my new book. I do take emails at jrlc@yahoo.com, jrlc@yahoo.com. People want their book signed. I'll send them the post office box to send it, prepaid stamp addressed envelope, and I'll sign the book and return it to you. We also have some book plates, and so those are easy to mail out. Lynn Brown, thank you. Joel Dunkel, thank you very much. And I'll mention a couple of times in the broadcast here before we're done the jrlc@yahoo.com and the fact that you can email me. I'll give you the instructions for getting your book signed. Be happy to sign them. Thank you again for Ireland here. Michael Mankin, thank you very much. We're going to see arrests. They're going to be coming. I'm going to be discussing that today. Carol Zier Russell, thank you very much. Elizabeth, thank you very much. I'm very, very appreciative of everyone in the Super Chat. We've got 1,000 people joining us. Let's get into the analysis of the news. There's a lot we have to discuss today. First of all, President Trump did sign the Omnibus Bill, and there was a lot of people who were upset about the Omnibus Bill being signed. This is kind of a very important piece of legislation in that it was controversial. First of all, it's over $1 trillion, and people were saying if President Trump was really holding to the line, why would he sign this bill? Well, I think when we analyze it, you're going to see some reasons why President Trump signed it. And it's actually, I think President Trump pulled one over on the Democrats. First of all, the bill is an omnibus bill. It's not a federal budget. Now, that's important, and it kind of gets slips by people because, the fact is that this omnibus bill allows President Trump discretion over what he wants to spend and what he doesn't want to spend. Now, if it were a budget bill, if it were a federal budget bill, President Trump would have been mandated to spend the money in certain specific categories. But an omnibus bill, and by the way, it was really Barack Obama who introduced these omnibus bills, and Barack Obama utilized the omnibus bills for 8 years. We basically seen President Trump do this over and over again when he has pulled the wool over the eyes of the Democrats. President Obama used this omnibus spending bill. Never had a budget bill, because then he could spend the money any way he wanted to spend it. And I still maintain that there's billions and billions of dollars in the Obama years that we don't know where the money went. I probably never will know where the money went, except some of it we know was flown over on airplanes with euro currency to Iran, which again I think is a very highly suspect transaction. But in this case, in the omnibus bill, the Democrats think they've gotten all this money for Planned Parenthood, for other Democratic goals. Well, President Trump can say, well, I'm not going to spend that right now. Or maybe I'll spend that after Congress gets some of my appointees, my nominations confirmed. Donald Trump's still in control. And what he got was, if you look at Donald Trump's statement when he signed the bill, what he got was a huge amount of money for the military. It says there's over $600 billion in this thing, which is money, which is not, it's right, $654.6 billion in total discretionary funding for defense. Now, that's a huge amount of money for defense. And it means that for the first time, I think President Trump is going to be able to deliver on returning the U.S. military to the status it needs to be in as a fighting force, has the ability to maintain peace around the world. He never would have gotten that money had the Democrats not thought they were pulling a fast one. David Corns, thank you very much. KR, very appreciative of those in the super chat. Thank you. You know, I was in Washington through last week with the snowstorm and everything else, and watching this debate take place. And Donald Trump came out and said initially he was going to veto the Omnibus Bill. Well, that immediately put a scare in everyone in Washington. They were all thinking, well, he's going to close down the government through Easter, and it'll take a long time to reopen it up. Then Donald Trump signed it, but he also did another thing that I think has been being discussed, by the way, over on the Calm Before the Storm, the at CBTS_stream. And what that is that yesterday, on Friday, President Trump sent a letter to Ryan in the House, and it basically is very technical. But what it does is it puts, I believe, Ryan on notice that President Trump is invoking emergency requirements. Remember, President Trump signed an emergency declaration with that executive order on December 21st, declaring that he could confiscate, Treasury could confiscate the money of those involved in human rights trafficking and corruption. And Treasury now has got 1,100 pages of people who they're going after under this emergency declaration. An emergency declaration gives the president exceptional powers, and these powers include the ability to use the military as need be, including in domestic situations, but also to declare emergency requirements in terms of funding, which under the Section 758D of Division K of the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2018, a president declared an emergency requirement for all funding designated in this bill to be in terms of sections that dealt with repurposing. Now that's technical, but what I believe it means, and I think I congratulate the people over on CBTS_stream for finding this, is it means that, again, like I'm saying, President Trump can basically take this bill and use it or not use it as he wants. He's not forced to spend the money for all these Democratic goodies. He can withhold it, but yet he got a huge amount of money for defense. He got a huge amount of money for the Department of Justice Inspector General. Got other things in this bill that are groundbreaking that I don't think President Trump could have gotten in any other way. So I really want to stress how important it is on these types of legislation not to just limit yourself to listening to what the mainstream media, the corporate media say. It's important to get below the surface and to really understand what's going on. And I think we see here that not only did President Trump kind of, in a sense, bamboozle the Democrats into thinking they were getting a huge amount of money they could spend for all their goodies, but President Trump now is reminding everyone he's going to spend them if he wants to spend it. He'll spend it according to the terms he wants to spend it, but I'll guarantee you the money in here will be spent for the military. Also, there's been reports saying he did not get the money for the wall. Well, I think in the money that was here for the Corps of Engineers, which was an exceptionally large amount of money, President Trump is going to be able to build the wall that way. And Q, the one new post we have from Q, said clock activated, red castle, green castle. Well, red castle, green castle signifies to me that the red castle is the Corps of Engineers. If you look at its symbol, it's a castle. And green castle, green light. I think now that means an acknowledgement that the wall is going to be built and the money is here to build it. It's just not line item that way. President Trump asked for line item authority to basically take line items out of this, but I think he's achieved it by indicating and acknowledging that this is a discretion, that he has the ability to decide on an omnibus spending bill, distinct from a budget bill, which this is not. He can really have great latitude on how he actually wants to spend the money. Okay, now, I want to cover, we've got a number of topics to cover today. And the next one I want to cover is John Bolton. John Bolton has come into now to replace McMaster's. And this is going to be controversial for many people, because many people think that John Bolton is a neocon and he's going to want to go to war. Lucy Markey, thank you in the super chat, much appreciated. I've known John Bolton for a long time. Probably met him first in 2004 when I co-authored with John O'Neill on Fit for Command, the book on the Swiftboat book on John Kerry. Now, it's true that you can say that Bolton comes out of the Richard Pearl group that was in the State Department. They, the neocons who were identified during the George W. Bush administration as wanting war in Iraq and the like. John Bolton was not picked by President Trump because President Trump wants war. President Trump, I think, is very skillfully, and it's a huge accomplishment to be able to get North Korea to come to the table and talk about nuclear disarmament. This is the kind of a support. If President Trump gets this kind of a deal with North Korea, and I think he's going to achieve it, it's going to be historic. A war will have been avoided. And by the way, I really like to make it clear to everyone, if you really look at my past history, I'm not for wars. I think wars are the least best solution. Wars are always, anybody who's been in any riots or combat or anything of that nature knows how chaotic, how incredibly difficult they are, how easy they are to go awry, how easy they are to simply go chaotic and turn out like you had not anticipated they would turn out. Now, to go into war with North Korea, I think, would have massive casualties, because North Korea is prepared to at least have conventional bombardment of South Korea. They're prepared to really, I think, cause massive damage. And if they did have missiles, even conventional missiles that could hit Japan, we could have an expanding war. If President Trump can pull this off, it's a huge accomplishment. I think he will. Bolton signifies to me two things. One, that Iran is going to be next. I remember when in 2005, I wrote Atomic Iran, and was worried even 13 years ago about Iran having nuclear weapons. And I had a private conversation with John Bolton, and John acknowledged that what I wrote in that book was right on in terms of the way he viewed Iran. And the problem with Iran is this regime of the religious rulers that have been there since Ayatollah Khomeini, that are really determined to develop nuclear weapons. Now, what I had, and those of you who remember, thank you very much, David, Laurie Vanderbeck. I really appreciate it. Margie Narcom in the super chat, thank you. When I was involved, when I wrote Atomic Iran, I walked some 200 miles with the Iranians who wanted peace in their own country, wanted the mullah and the regimes overthrown. And these were people who wanted freedom. I loved these people. They were virtually everybody in that march was Muslim. And what they showed and what they demonstrated is that, they wanted peace, and they realized that peace could be achieved in Iran. I think you're going to see a phenomenal achievement when Donald Trump will take not only North Korea, but also Iran, and move them into peace. Now, to have John Bolton there, and everybody knows John Bolton is, in many cases, a hawk, will put North Korea and Iran on notice that President Trump is not going to back down, but he's also not going to rush into war. Now, there's a second part of this which I think is extremely important, and that is when McMaster came in, and everybody who knew McMaster remembers that he's basically been a Obama holdover. And McMaster had all these, just like Obama did in general, a lot of Muslim Brotherhood packed throughout the administration, including the National Security Council. And remember, it was not even possible to say radical Islamic terrorism because under Obama that was a no-no. We couldn't represent that there were radical Islamic terrorists. And by the way, you should be seeing with my willingness to go 200 miles with the Iranians who were Muslim, I'm not a person who holds that Islam is a religion that, I'm willing to accept Islam as a legitimate religion. I think it needs to undergo reformation. But then again, almost every major religion, including Christianity, has had to go through a reformation. We don't have crusades any longer. We don't have inquisitions. And every major religion needs to go through this transformation. But the point is, in addition to the Iran issue, what Bolton's going to be able to do is clean house in the National Security Agency. Take all of the, because when McMaster came in, he took all of Flynn's appointees and basically scrubbed them out. Now, it's anticipated that when Bolton is in the National Security Agency within the White House, National Security Council, that he is going to scrub out McMaster's appointees, who are largely Clinton holdovers, and replace them with people who are loyal to General Flynn and loyal to what they call the Flintstones. I mean, that's the name they've given to the advisors who are loyal to Flynn, which to me is welcome news. I think General Flynn is a real patriot, and I think he was set up by Rosenstein and by McCabe and the FBI, with Strozik, who changed, by the way, the interrogation report on General Flynn. Then Comey, head of the FBI, said that Flynn had not lied. But suddenly, when all these anti-Trump people in the FBI, including Rosenstein, by the way, got together, they decided they changed the report, and suddenly Flynn was charged with lying. Now, what I'm saying basically is that with Bolton's announcement that maybe a dozen people are going to be fired out of the National Security Council, this is going to be a major step, I think, in getting into a pro-Trump foreign policy as Trump prepares to get into these May negotiations with North Korea, followed by negotiations with Iran, because I think John Bolton means Iran is next. Now, as I say, I've known John Bolton for all these years, since 2004, 2005. I've had many conversations with John Bolton. I think he's a gentleman. I think he's a brilliant individual. And I can attest to you that he is a patriot, that he's going to be loyal to President Trump, and that he basically understands the intricacies of foreign policy. He served for a while. He was basically, he's called ambassador. He was ambassador under, I believe, to the UN under George W. Bush for a while. I've got great confidence in John Bolton. And my confidence in Bolton, I think, extends to being clear that the McMaster's influence is going to be gone in the White House. And I believe Donald Trump has accomplished 2 or 3 major things with these position changes. By getting rid of Tillerson as Secretary of State, Donald Trump removed someone who disagreed with him on foreign trade and international agreements. Tillerson believed in these international agreements, wanted to go back into the Trans-Pacific Partnership, pushed for was not in favor of the tariffs that Donald Trump is putting on steel and the like. These are important because the cabinet, first round, Donald Trump had Reince Priebus, and he said, well, all these GOP from D.C., the elite said, well, don't worry about it, Mr. Trump. We'll handle getting Obamacare repealed, replaced. Why don't you play golf? We're the pros from Dover. We know how Washington works. We'll get your legislation done. Well, they failed. And President Trump fired Priebus. Okay, now you had this round, and Tillerson and Cohn, basically argued against Donald Trump on the tariffs going back in, and Trump said, I don't need the Goldman Sachs group anymore. So that whole group of globalists are gone. And now McMaster, who was another globalist in line with the Obama policy on Muslim Brotherhood, was fine throughout the Middle East. And I think, like Egypt and El-Sisi, the Muslim Brotherhood has been one of the major terrorist organizations destabilizing the Middle East. And we don't need the Muslim Brotherhood. Huma Abedin, by the way, Muslim Brotherhood, one of Hillary's top advisors for an extended period of time since the White House, but including one of her top advisors at the State Department. I'm pleased to see these people gone. And I believe John Bolton's going to be a welcome addition into the White House. And I think it's going to position President Trump for some major new accomplishments. Let's talk about Joe diGenova. This is the shakeup was also Donald Trump last week fired Dowd, one of his top legal advisors. Christine, thank you very much. I very much appreciate everybody in the super chat. These contributions keep us going. A lot of this work I like to do, and I like the fact that these live chats are available without cost. And by the way, we're going to be also broadcasting on Gab. I think Gab.ai is ready now for some really vigorous live chat, and we'll be doing it over there as well. President Trump not only made changes with Tillerson and Cohn and McMaster's all gone, he also shook up his legal team. I think, as Q said, we're getting ready for Trump administration version 2.0. And this Dowd, who was fired, was someone, I believe, who was in a position to try to advise Trump. Trump was getting a lot of Washington advice from his lawyers, Ty Cobb, all these other lawyers who were saying basically, play the game. Play the game, President Trump. You'll come out ahead. Just play the game. Well, President Trump has been saying he wants to testify before Mueller. I don't believe it for a minute. I think that's what he's saying because it's appropriate to say that. But when it comes down to it, I don't think President Trump's going to testify before Mueller. I think there's a different plan. Let me explain who Joe diGenova is. I've also known Joe diGenova since about 2004. And Joe diGenova, who's a former U.S. attorney, I have the utmost respect for him as an attorney in D.C. He is a tough and honest guy who understands corruption even within the Department of Justice. I've been on many panels with him. Most recently, I was on a panel that Tom Fitton organized at Judicial Watch with Chris Farrell. We had this panel just before the election last year. Peter Schweitzer was on the panel. Myself, Joe diGenova. We were talking about the Clinton Foundation crimes. And Joe diGenova was brilliant in that panel. You can watch it. It's up there on C-SPAN. You can see it. Joe diGenova is a tough, hard-driving lawyer who is not going to give in easily. Now, I want to show you even kind of the integrity both of Joe diGenova and President Trump and the direction they're going in. Joe diGenova is married to Victoria Townsend. Now, I've also known Victoria Townsend for years in Washington, and she's a private attorney. The two of them work as private attorneys, and again, I have the highest respect for Victoria Townsend. She's another brilliant attorney, conservative, hard driving, Windsor cases, and one of her clients is this William Campbell. Now, William Campbell is the lobbyist who is the whistleblower on the Russian bribery scandal in the uranium industry that was occurring before this committee, the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, voted to allow Russia to buy uranium-1 and get 20% of the uranium in the United States. And by the way, that was a Clinton Foundation scam, was a Clinton Foundation deal. Clinton Foundation made $175 million on the deal. Bill Clinton got a $500,000 speaking fee. These, I think, are the kinds of things that, the criminality. And by the way, the uranium did leave the United States. I think some of it went to North Korea. More lies. But the key point is that Mueller and Rosenstein, I think, was in one of the states at the time. Mueller was head of the FBI. They suppressed information about this Russian bribery scheme from this Committee on Foreign Investments in the United States. Had the committee known about it, I doubt if they would have voted to allow Russia to buy 100% of this uranium-1 or get that much control in the U.S. market. Now, if Trump is bringing in Joe diGenova, and he's married to Victoria Townsend, and Victoria's client is William Campbell, what I think Trump is doing, and I wrote an article on this last week, said the way to end the Mueller special prosecutor is not to fire Mueller, but in fact to get within the Justice Department a grand jury called and have Mueller and Rosenstein subpoenaed as criminal witnesses under target investigation from the grand jury for their role in covering up the uranium-1 scandal. And that would mean, I believe, that both Rosenstein and Mueller would have to resign the minute they were under criminal investigation under uranium-1. And Joe diGenova is the guy to do it in the White House, along with his wife, Victoria Townsend, who has this William Campbell in the wings. I'm sure if you've watched Sean Hannity's program with any regularity, you've seen the reporting that John Solomon and Sarah Carter have done on William Campbell and on Victoria Townsend. This is serious, and it's really the way I think Mueller's investigation ends. Because as soon as the table are turned and you get Joe diGenova saying, don't testify to Mueller. In fact, let's just get Mueller put under criminal investigation. My wife's got the witness who can do it. I mean, this ought to put fear into the hearts of the special prosecutor and all the Democrats who think that they escaped with a fast one. Now, one of the Conservative Treehouse reported this last week that Trey Yinsing, who is the White House correspondent for One American News, and by the way, I was at One American News last week and did some interviews on my book, Killing the Deep State, and Trey is an excellent journalist. Trey reported on March 19th, President Trump says there will be a major news conference at the White House in about a month. Now, if that's going to be related to the Inspector General's report coming out on the Department of Justice and or new investigations into the special counselor, over this uranium-1, I think the tables are about to be turned. Now, I want to make sure everybody understands this. And Jen Cray, thank you very much in the Super Chat. Very much appreciated. If President Trump fires Mueller, he's going to have a firestorm from the Democrats. They're all going to demand impeachment. If he puts through this uranium-1 scandal, turns the tables, and gets Mueller under criminal investigation along with Rosenstein, I think Mueller has to resign and Rosenstein has to resign. Now, Rosenstein is a deep state operative, and he is in there really as number 2 in the Department of Justice, and I think he's undermining Sessions. I think Rosenstein is another Clinton-Obama fixer, and he's trying to prevent any legal action within the Department of Justice that would lead to a criminal investigation of Hillary or Barack Obama or the Democrats. Now, President Trump, I do not think, and I know also how many are saying, I've even gotten emails with people saying, well, we don't know about QAnon anymore. You know, we've trusted his story. We've listened. It's raised our hopes, but yet nothing happens. I want to affirm that QAnon is a legitimate source. QAnon is military intelligence. QAnon is tied into the administration. We're getting excellent reports from him. QAnon, as I'll talk about in a moment, even gave us tips that we were going to find Zuckerberg and the others in the social media in the hot water. QAnon's been right on all of this, and I know how frustrating it is. Everybody says, why can't we just have Hillary and Barack Obama, you know, in handcuffs and walked out of the, their official residences under arrest and get this going. The first round of what we're in has failed. Mueller has failed to get a criminal indictment on Trump. There is no Russian collusion. In fact, you've got a few wacky Russians that posted on social media. Department of Justice said did not influence the election, and it in fact does not have the impact of any collusion with Trump or anybody on his campaign. To get what's going to happen next, which is the counterattack, with all the pieces aligned, so that the counterattack that Trump launches is effective and successful, is now being set in place behind the scenes. This Joe DeGenova appointment is, I think, key in that. And you're going to see I believe that, we need to support President Trump on this and have confidence, along with Q, that this next round, this middle game, this counterattack, is going to be very successful. I think Donald Trump is going to pursue charges against a whole variety of people in the FBI and the Department of Justice, I think in the CIA. I think ultimately with the crimes that looked like they occurred over the FISA process, the FISA court process using this Fusion GPS dossier, that again crimes were committed. You can't misrepresent a document like this to the FISA court. And when the FBI could not validate any of the claims as authentic within this Fusion GPS scurrilous opposition research attack on Donald Trump, and with the information from this wiretapping, this electronic surveillance, entered into the Obama White House, Valerie Jarrett unmasked it. Valerie Jarrett and others brought this to the press, leaked it, and these are, I think, major crimes. Now, when Q says, and think about this, Patriot Pants, thank you very much. Q says constantly, trust the plan, and that we are only as strong as your voice, everyone out there listening, that this is the time to demand that Mueller's investigation be ended. He's produced nothing. He's going off track. He's going far afield. And with the information we now have on the Uranium One bribery scandal the Russians did, and that information was withheld from the Committee on Foreign Investments in the United States when the Clintons got slipped through this Russian deal to buy Uranium One and get 20% of the U.S. uranium under Russian control. Outrageous deal. We have a White House that is going to be ready to take action, and it cannot take action without the widespread support of the American people. Mainstream media is never going to support Donald Trump on this. If Donald Trump orders Russian salad dressing for lunch, mainstream media is going to basically say he's in collusion with Putin. They called up Putin and congratulated him for winning the election, which is normal. That's been done by presidents typically with other countries in other elections. Yet in this case, the mainstream media said it was collusion. Q has said to us, be loud, be heard. And this is the time when we need to support President Trump and demand that we get the kind of justice on one of the most outrageous incidents in American history. The opposition's party, President Obama, allowing the Democrats to have under electronic surveillance through the Justice Department and the FBI the presidential campaign of the other party, the GOP, and the transition under electronic surveillance, and some 6 months or more into the White House under electronic surveillance. I mean, here you had a FBI working with the NSA, putting the president under electronic surveillance in the White House, and I doubt very much that that was done with President Trump's approval. It was all these deep state operatives who were undermining President Trump, and I believe need to be brought to justice. I know everyone out there wants justice. Please be patient. Watch this unfold. It's going to be historic. When this ordeal is over, someone here, Scooter says, in the live chat, these treasonous bad actors, and I include in that Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, whom I do think will have to be brought to trial, and I think Trump will do it for treason or sedition, because these actions were taken to deny Donald Trump the presidency, and I think that's intolerable. That's a coup d'etat, and as I say, one of the reasons I wrote my book, Killing the Deep State, is that when you read it, you're going to be shocked by the coup d'etat, the evidence that within the FBI there was a coup d'etat to remove President Trump from office by impeachment, and that coup d'etat is still going on. But Donald Trump is turning the tide, and I think with our support, he's going to continue to turn the tide. So that's another big development this week, and there's one more issue I want to talk about, but that was a very big development, and please, all of these Obama holdovers, including this SES, which is the special executive, something like 10,000 federal bureaucrats under a law passed in Jimmy Carter's era that can't be fired. Well, they may not be fired, but they can have their salaries reduced, or the departments that they're working in can be reallocated to maybe Nome, Alaska. If they want to continue their jobs, they can move to Nome, Alaska. I doubt if very many of these leftist politicians comfortable in Washington, D.C. and all their nice surrounding environments in Virginia and all the bedroom communities, voting Democratic, by the way, in all these states. I doubt if they want to move to Nome, Alaska, where Donald Trump could reallocate or reassign Health and Human Services or Department of Transportation or whatever. There's more ways to skin a cat, and I think Donald Trump will take care of the SES employees. Donald Trump, what Q is saying right now is Donald Trump needs our support. Where we go, one, we go all. And I think around the world, be assured that the Clinton Foundation is under investigation. There are major developments occurring in Australia. This investigation of Michael Smith, I think, is gaining ground. For the Australians to demand back the millions that were stolen by the Clintons on this HIV/AIDS scam in which they bought defective drugs from India and shipped them to Africa, not caring that lives were being lost for people relying on drugs that couldn't cure them. The exploitation of tragedy by the Clintons for money is just, to me, inconceivably evil. I believe there's action going on in Germany and in France against the Clinton Foundation, and now in Ireland. We've had a couple of good broadcasts. If you've seen I've had it on my YouTube channel, the broadcast I did with Jason Goodman and Charles Ortel. We had a wide-ranging discussion of these issues in my study. And we also had Gran Torino from the @CBTS_stream do, I thought, a brilliant conversation in which Charles was the featured presenter, and I helped by going through it with Charles, asking him questions, and making sure we got the full nature of the Irish stealing of money from Ireland that the Clinton Foundation did, on both this AIDS scam and also in Haiti. And Gran Torino did a brilliant job, even risking himself politically to do so. But I was honored to bring that information to Ireland. And around the world, I think we're going to get and increasingly see, this whole criminality, this era of politicians thinking that they can benefit here, criminally by going to Washington and making themselves wealthy. I'm tired of the McConnells, the Ryans, the establishment GOP, just like the Democrats. And by the way, the other point I might want to mention in the Omnibus Bill that I thought was pretty brilliant on President Trump's part, and that is he got the Democrats to abandon the DACA. All these deferred amnesty, from the deferred, basically deferred. The kids who were here in the United States, brought here by their parents, the Democrats were supposedly going to fight for them to get citizenship. Donald Trump offered a path to citizenship and an agreement. The Democrats abandoned it. And so the Democrats took all the spending, what they thought was their, pork spending, and Donald Trump doesn't have to spend it because it's an omnibus bill, as I pointed out earlier, not a budget. But yet they abandoned DACA, all these immigrants for money. And I think in the next election cycle, that's going to make a big difference when it comes time for the Hispanics to vote, realizing the Democratic Party turned their back on DACA. That was, I think, one of the more brilliant strategies President Trump used in negotiating this omnibus. DACA was thrown under the bus by the Democrats. Okay, now, I think around the world, all of us together, all patriots for freedom, this is an historically important time. And we must work together, must reach out across these countries to stop what the globalists have as international scams. Freedom is as important today in South Africa as it is in the Middle East, as it is in Europe, Asia, Cuba, South America, all around the world. People want the same thing. They want to be free. They want to live their lives with an opportunity to have economic advancement, have their children advance. New Zealand, Australia, countries that I've been to and love. These, I think, it's an historic moment for justice seekers around the world to unite. Patriots say that Q-Anon sent us, and we're here to reclaim our freedom. Now, one more subject I really want to cover is this attack. Facebook this past week, I think, has now been exposed. And Zuckerberg on this whole Cambridge Analytica, where it was found that the data in Facebook was being used for political purposes. And by the way, Cambridge Analytica, that was an attack to make it look like Donald Trump was using all this data. Donald Trump did not really use very much of the Cambridge Analytica data, but where it backfired, because everybody knew that Zuckerberg was in the back pocket of the Democrats. And it was the Democrats who were using all this social media information for their campaigns, including Eric Schmidt, who was, one of the chief outside advisors to Hillary Clinton, and took all the Google data and made it part of Hillary's get out the vote effort. Now, it looks to me like with the pressure that all these social media companies are beginning to realize, they started censoring conservatives and libertarians off the internet. Thought they could get away with it. If Hillary had won, they could have shut down the internet for any views except for what the intolerant, what I'm beginning to call the hate left. Any view that disagrees with the hate left, these extremists, including in the Democratic Party, you go to a thought reform camp. They don't want a First Amendment. Obviously, they don't want a Second Amendment. They want to chip away at the Second Amendment, get all the kids to go out and march in the streets, for this Freedom Day. The kids will be safer if there's armed guards in the school. Unfortunately, that's the only way these school shootings are going to be stopped here or anywhere else around the world. Facebook, I want to point out to you that Facebook, one of the reasons I think Facebook is being thrown to the dogs by the Silicon Valley social media giants is because Facebook was already losing market share. It had already become outmoded, boring to the younger users who prefer the Snapchats and other vehicles. And so Zuckerberg is now might as well be, he's going to lose some of his billions of dollars. And it's going to be, I think, quick. Because here's the thing you've got to think about. I say it's like, we can adapt the Sting song, every move you make, etc. Well, every click you take, we are watching you. When you go back to the origin of Silicon Valley, it was funded first with military, industrial complex money. Lockheed Martins and the others were there funding the Silicon Valley when Silicon Valley was nothing. You had Google, Facebook, and the others were all created with either National Security Agency or CIA efforts. These are intelligence agency products. What I've been arguing, what I think now is apparent, is that you've got to start looking, we've all got to start looking at social media as the dashboard, the interface, the front end, where the intelligence agencies have placed the social media. It sure looks attractive, I can post pictures of, we're taking a vacation. Here we are taking a vacation. This is what we're doing now. And, post what you're doing now and have your friends follow you and be a celebrity. How many followers can you get? That's how many can you play the social media game, watch your numbers, look at your YouTube account every 20 minutes. And the seduction of being able to communicate internationally over the internet. What people don't realize is you're volunteering to the intelligence agencies the most intimate knowledge about yourself. You're filling in their forms. They're taking advantage of human vanity, of human, are like wanting to be known and seen and interact. And the intelligence agencies from the very beginning said, this is great. And with the computers that we've gotten, with everything that we have today, we're going to be able to get every telephone conversation in the world, every email, every instant message. And then we just get the data from Google and Facebook and the others. We can profile these people. We can know what they like, what they don't like, where they are. And by the way, if you've got your cell phone, you get your iPhone around, here's your GPS device. You've just reported to the intelligence agencies where you are at every given moment. I mean, basically, we've got a situation where the intelligence agencies have conned us into self-volunteering all this information, which can be put into the databases at the NSA, the CIA, and, by the way, international agencies, because I think one of the things we're going to find out when Donald Trump begins his counterattack and the Democrats find themselves under criminal investigation, very likely with the new special prosecutor, which I think is increasingly likely to be appointed, you're going to find out that the foreign intelligence agencies, MI6, Great Britain, do all the electronic surveillance in Americans they wanted because we're foreigners to them. And CIA and NSA could all the electronic surveillance of Britain that they want to. Then we can ship that data over to them. So wink, wink, they didn't collect it. CIA didn't collect it on U.S. citizens. They just got a hold of it through Great Britain. This is the intelligence agencies around the world forming their own shadow government. It's the great fear, what we should be concerned about that I call attention to in killing the deep state. It's one of the main reasons I wrote the book. You know, it's these intelligence agencies operating on their own agenda, which has nothing to do with our freedoms and our need to have a free society. Now, as I've been saying on all of this, we're going to see, I think, a call for a Internet Bill of Rights that QAnon has supported. QAnon has said that all of these internet agencies are going to be 100% regulated. So, you know, Zuckerberg and Schmidt and all the others thinking you were going to censor everybody off of your internet except for those on the hard hate left that you agree with. I don't think so. Not with Donald Trump getting the regulations over into the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, with much more strict regulations for privacy. We're protecting all this data that we're giving up willingly. That we take into consideration antitrust and break up these giants. That we have new players within the social media field that can give us alternatives. And that we have this action be one that is supported by President Trump, who I think now realizes the president is even being censored by Twitter. And if you don't realize it, just realize that unless you have your browsers set to accept sensitive information, you may never get President Trump's tweets. They may never get to you. Now, all of this, I think, is a need, and it's why we can take a look at other sites like Gab AI, and I'm increasingly posting on Gab AI. We're going to be doing live chats on Gab AI. Andrew Torba, who created that, has created an environment which is friendly to conservatives and libertarians. You know, these are the things I think when we have to support. I want to, I've a couple of different times referenced, and I want to shout out to the @CBTS, Calm Before the Storm underscore stream, @CBTS underscore stream. Their live chat in which I'm frequently, almost every day, working to decode new Q posts. Sometimes Q is silent, like he has been much of this week, but we can be hit by a barrage of new posts. Q's extremely busy behind the scenes. There's sometimes Q says, you know, only 2% of what's going on do we see, and when you take a look at, you know, how I've tried to give you the inside of what's going on, basically, behind the scenes, Donald Trump is organizing for a major counterattack against the Democrats and the traitors within the deep state, and is organizing, I believe, to get the bureaucracy and the budget under more control, and the Democrats are constantly underestimating President Trump and thinking that they can fool him. I think they're going to realize pretty quickly that Donald Trump's a lot smarter than they gave him credit for. And the last couple of minutes here, I want to also thank everyone on the support on my book, Killing the Deep State. I really deeply appreciate it. I was interviewed last week by Cheryl Atkinson, formerly of CBS. And this is in a C-SPAN book TV. We had an hour interview. I was really honored to be able to be interviewed by Cheryl Atkinson because she herself has suffered the censorship in the, you know, CBS not allowed to produce certain stories that the corporate, you know, mainstream media didn't want heard. And I thought she did a brilliant job. She really had studied the book. The interview, Watch Book TV's listings. It will be shown in the next very few weeks. I found Atkinson to be, the first time I'd met her, really brilliant, insightful. I thought she, gracious person. We met at the C-SPAN offices in Washington. Had never met before. We had a nice, cordial conversation. We went on the set, and she had notes. She was reading from passages from my book. Um, kind of a sneak preview of what I said and what was in the discussion was not only did she understand that this was a deep state threat to our democracy, the coup d'etat attempt, but we discussed how, in fact, you're not going to see my book being interviewed on CBS, NBC, etc. It's going to be blocked out. The mainstream media does not want you reading Killing the Deep State. They're going to do everything they can to prevent you from reading my book. And James Comey's book, it's not a coincidence that he's coming out on top of my book being released. The mainstream media will fawn over Comey. He's a victim and he has a higher goal. Comey is the guy who signed the FISA court petitions based in part on the Fusion GPS dossier, which Comey knew had not been validated as true. And then Comey testified to Congress that this Fusion GPS was really a document they couldn't validate, that it was a scurrilous document, a lies. Well, Comey was either lying then when he applied to the FISA court, or he was lying the next time when he testified to Congress. This is a guy who lied under oath, and yet the mainstream media is going to promote his book and do everything they can to prevent Killing the Deep State from being read. And we talked about this at length. Cheryl Atkinson delved into these areas. And also, she asked me, I thought it was a brilliant question. She said, I'm with Infowars.com and their Washington correspondent. And she asked me, what is Infowars? I said, one of the best descriptions I've had was from a close investment banker friend who said that Infowars is the most disruptive media in the world to the mainstream media narrative. That Alex Jones had done a brilliant job in being able to confront the mainstream media and draw a worldwide audience, millions of people. And I affirmed in that interview, and I hope, when you broadcast it, you'll hear me say I'm proud to be with Alex Jones. I was very proud to be with Joseph Farah on WND, 12 years. I'm equally proud to be with Alex Jones and Infowars.com and that excellent team in Austin, Texas. And I pointed out that Alex is constantly attacked unfairly, lies told about Alex, court cases, etc., that are threatened. And Alex has fought through it bravely and continues to present the message of Infowars. This is an Infowar that we're in. It is a great information war. And it's a war that we intend to win. But we can only win it with the support of you listening, of patriots around the world, of those who are fighting for freedom and justice in their own countries. We join hands together. And as Q says, where we go one, we go all. We will win this war. We will win this battle. The forces of evil, that want coup d'etats, the globalists, the internationalists, the central bankers, they're going to lose. But we need your help. We need your assistance. We need your involvement. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, from all those in Super Chat. Thank you very much from all those listening and participating. Please raise your voices. Demand justice. Join with us. Q-Anon sent us, and we don't intend to go away. God bless you all, and thank you very much for listening today. Thank you for joining us. This is Jerome Corsi signing off. Thank you.